Hey folks, Chris McLean back with another episode, and on the show today I've got Cara from Tuckshop Agency. They're a good-for-profit creative agency that's about accelerating the profitability of good companies doing great things so they can make an even bigger impact. And most of their clients are purpose-driven organizations, whether that's startups looking to find their story or larger blue chips who want to do things differently than the status quo. I'm excited to get into all of that stuff. It's always an interesting space to talk about on purpose and people doing good things. Welcome to the show, Cara. Thanks for dropping by.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's great to be here.
Yeah, good to have you here. So I know that there's a few things we're going to get on. We always tend to start the show with where you got started and sort of how did Tuckshop come about, and then we'll sort of get into so your philosophies on building a non-purpose business and supporting your clients in that sort of space. But take us to how did Tuckshop come about for you? Did you have agency experience before this? Was it just you sort of fell into the industry? Take us through how you got started.
Okay, so the short version of the long story is Tuckshop. So Tuckshop, we actually, I started my own company in 2005. I'd sort of been freelancing for a couple of years before that. We actually were called Sultry, so really it's heavily servicing the natural products food space. So a lot of good companies sort of in that space for about 10 years. And then we rebranded to Tuckshop 3 years ago. So formerly known as Sultry and now Tuckshop. So how I started was I was a desktop publisher at a university when I was 16, did a quick sort of found this thing called graphic design, like, oh, this sounds interesting, and studied at a private school, at a private college, because there was no such thing as a Bachelor of Design in those days. I think there was one university in Queensland doing, I think, communication design as a stream, but there was no degree, and worked for some agencies up there. Came down here to Melbourne, and I was working for an agency. Knew what my paycheck was, and basically we landed them. I got into strategy at that point, and basically we landed a part of the Laminex group. I saw what the agency got paid. I saw what I got paid, and I was like, "Ooh, I could do this for myself." At 23, no one told me about overheads and all of that, so I just said yes. Worked out how, and then that's how I sort of started. It was, and then the first time I did a wine label, I was like, well, just say yes and work out how. So over time, we sort of, I guess, transitioned from, being a designer doing clients to probably did that for 7 years. I had an illustrator I worked really, really closely with. So I was basically a one-man band for 7 years. But during that time, I picked up a government contract because I used to always go to clients. So they didn't really, I used to build the teams. Basically how my company started was using the Ford model, basically the Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich. So building your mastermind group. So instead of having to have this agency with all these people, I would bring in the people that were required to deliver the job. And then about 7 years ago, I got my first team member. I got my first full-time staff member. So basically I got divorced 10 years ago and I lost everything. I had $200 in all of my bank accounts. I had taken a year off. And so I rebuilt the company 7 years ago, or probably 8 years ago now. And that was when I got my first team member. And then within 3 years, I had 5. Within the next 2 years after that, so by year 5 of the rebuild, we were at 8. We got up to 10 at one point and then decided that wasn't the right number and we brought it back. Actually, due to COVID, I had 2 team choose to leave last year in January. One was going to have a baby, one was going to study, and we didn't replace them. And so we're now really cranking at about 6, which is fantastic. So our growth was sort of from design agency to creative agency to strategic. Like I spent 7 years being mentored by a senior strategist who's worked in some of the biggest brand agencies around the world, Interbrand, Future Brand, Saatchi and Saatchi. And basically she personally mentored me for 7 years. So I swung pretty heavily into the strategic space, and we're now a fully integrated strategic brand agency servicing FMCG and startups. And I
Yeah.
got
Wow.
7
Wow.
amazing staff. So it has been a ride. And I think the
Yeah.
big learning for us when we rebranded was listening to some of the other prior podcasts. I think the big thing, so we was a branding studio, right? So we're a branding agency, really specializing in strategic storytelling and creating these beautiful brands and, brand persona workshops and doing the creative. And exactly like one of the previous guys sort of said, it's like, I think he was a web developer and then clients kept leaving. We're like, well, they'd leave us, not leave us, but that project would stop because they'd then go to a marketing agency. We thought, this doesn't make sense. How do we retain them? So we got into social and strategic social, so performance-based social media. So not just Facebook posts, but we're very much about performance optimized social. And we got into that probably 6 years ago, and now are very successful at doing integrated below the line, always on strategies for specifically more for the food and like for lifestyle, consumer packaged goods, CPG. And that's what differentiates us a lot from other packaging, just pure packaging agencies. So it's exciting, but we don't do big advertising because we found that it's a very different world. We tried that and we just said, that's not us. We're actually, what we do really well is creating story and bringing that story to life in an integrated setting. We don't have to be the media buyer or the media agency.
Right.
So that's our story.
Yeah. It's an amazing story, amazing journey. And was that sort of the reason that was there a particular reason that you moved into sort of that on purpose, good for the planet, good for the world type niche? Was that's just who you are and that's the stuff that you buy?
Yeah, that's very much who I am. So I've always been a really big fan about, helping others to live their full potential, and sort of saw that sort of coming through with the clients that we were sort of working with. So Maver's peanut butter is one of our biggest favorite clients. All my clients are awesome, but Maver's is probably one of our biggest success stories. And you're talking about working with founders and even bigger blue chip companies who really want to do the right thing, and they really do want to make better choices. And it's not always cheaper for them. Like sometimes it costs them more money to do it that way, but they're leaving a legacy and they're wanting to do things right. They are challenging the status quo. And so another one of our clients gives 100% of the profits back to the people that make their products so that they can get out of poverty in third world nations. I mean, they had an 85-page website and we helped them to distill that website to one line that, catapulted their profitability so they could actually do more good, so that's the stuff that gets us excited. Or startups, organizations who have these amazing ideas and products, but they've got no idea how to articulate that to investors or to articulate that to banks or even obviously the end customer. So we help them go through that, connect to that why, like Simon Sinek, and then actually go, well, what can we do? How can we tell that in a really simple, powerful way that converts back to profit for you? And that's, I guess, where my creative team are just bloody geniuses, that they're able to take my strategy decks. They're able to take the strat decks that we sort of put forward that have been strength tested and data checked and create then these brilliant creative campaigns. So it's pretty exciting. And when we see it actually making a difference, and we just literally just did a really beautiful pro bono piece for a cafe called All Things Equal. Brilliant cafe guys down in Carlisle Street. And their whole purpose is about giving people with and without disability, but it's purposely created to help create joy and meaning in the lives of people with disabilities by giving them jobs in hospitality and training them to basically be able to work in mainstream society. And it just absolutely incredible. So we help them. There's been nothing to this level sort of like it within Melbourne. And so we help them to create their story and then create the brand and create the social media and even their internal cultural strategy. So every single part of that business, the brand comes to life and media get it. So that was a big piece of work and investment for us that we did for free, but that got us excited, so that's really rewarding.
Yeah, it's a really interesting space. So sort of pre-COVID, I was chief marketing officer at a circular economy coffee cup startup. So a similar kind of space where we had a circular economy, sustainable, exchangeable product where there's always the challenge we found was you're educating as well as informing and telling your story. And particularly, and there's also a big distinction between educating the public and educating into corporates. So you said corporates and stakeholders and shareholders and investors, they're kind of two different segments. And the comms is very, very different. And how do you find that process of making sure that you're saying, it comes down to saying the right things to the right people, so they go, okay. Sometimes this stuff's quite complex when you're trying to say this is how we do it. It's a reusable fabric, or we save sea turtles, or it can be quite a complex story. How are you simplifying that and making sure everybody gets it?
Yeah, absolutely. There was one that we did was Good360. They're an amazing not-for-profit that basically connects brand new unsold goods to charities and people in need. And that was a massive story. So if you imagine Officeworks has got polka dot cups are all fashion this season, but next season it's lightning bolts. What happens to the polka dot cups? They're brand new, never been touched, never been used. They used to go into landfill, and Australia didn't realize just how much stuff got dumped. So we had to help them tell their story to charities. We had to help tell them stories to major corporations like the Officeworks and the big W's, and to get them understand the concept, as well as donors, as well as CSR teams. So it comes down to the simple point of, you can do persona profiling in a real simple way, and even using the new human-centered methodologies like user journey mapping, and just going, what is the one thing these people need to know in order to make a decision, and distilling it and simplifying it. So we've got a number of different tools that we use. And then we generally just sort of go, what are the key stories that are really important? And we just put them up as like Post-it notes, color-coded Post-it notes on a big white wall is awesome. And it builds itself pretty quickly, so that's because I think that's the biggest problem that clients will often have is, how do I bring all of this information into a way that makes sense? So that's it. And from there, it pretty much builds itself. But it's like, what's that one thing that they really care about in order for them to make a decision?
Yeah. It's that balance between marketing and finding that particularly in corporate, what's that trigger? What's that mechanism of, okay, that's how I make a decision. That's how the CEO that wants to do a sustainability program, that's the trigger that's going to make me make the decision.
Correct.
And how do you then go, if this is your benefit, right? If you do it, maybe it's as simple as doing this is going to give you some PR and marketing uplift, right? Here's some earned media off the back of this story. As a CEO, I go, great. I know I'm going to spend 10 grand and I'm going to get 100 grand worth of PR and uplift.
100%.
But it's always really interesting finding that particular. It's been around, but it's definitely growing. And it's finding that balance between, here's a good news story, but how do we put that into words that a CEO, a C-suite, the marketing department, the PR team, the customer on the ground, the partners, the collaboration, all of these people need to get their bit to go, okay,
in a different way, 100%. And I think a lot of clients don't always understand that you have more than the end consumer. You do have all these other touch points that if you get that story right, then that's where you'll make your money. That's half the journey sometimes. They just want the pretty pictures.
But I think the culture of the organization itself, for them just to understand what their brand is and what their message is, and having, here's the 3-word succinct tagline that says, this is what we do, this is how we do it. Even that clarity is often hard in this space. I know what we do. We do a cup, or we do a bottle, or we do clothing. But what is the essence of it? What are we actually
100%.
doing? What's the benefit? It can be quite difficult to tease that stuff out.
And my God, that's why there's professionals. That's why there's these things called branding agencies.
Yeah. What an amazing
it's
concept.
not easy. Yeah, that's right. Professionals that actually know how to do that.
Obviously, that's something that you've built, that skill set, right? You've now kind of say you sort of got tools, you got process, you go, okay, we know what we need to do, and you're aware of that. We need to communicate
100%.
this across different levels.
I would have spent $50,000 on my own mentoring with my executive coach who specialized in that. $50,000 of my money to educate me before I even started to educate my team. So, you know, it's not some magic thing you wake up one day and go, oh yeah, like, oh, I knew this. You've got to be actively across reading and, you know, looking at new systems and new tools. And like, even when human-centered methodology, like HCD or human-centered design and design systems thinking started to really come out, what was that, about 8 years ago, into more mainstream? You know, everyone's talking about user journey mapping and persona profiling and empathy profiling, but a lot of people don't actually know how to do it.
You can follow the diagram and stick your stuff in, but you don't really know what does that actually mean, and actually getting to, it's not just about writing the thing in the box. It's like, what does this actually mean for a human person that now has to go and communicate this to somebody else?
How do we do something with this information? I think that's the biggest thing. Is a lot of clients that go, I don't need strategy. It's like, well, I've done that before. It's like, well, what did you get out of it? Right. So there wasn't a tangible outcome. Okay, well, this is the tangible outcome that we'll give you. And here's some examples of tangible outcomes that we've delivered before. And I think that that's the big thing when we present and pitch for new business. We don't like free pitching. We don't believe in it. That's what we sort of show clients. The way that we win most of our work is showing the benefit that we've given a client before, and a commercial benefit, an actual uplift, sales uplift, profit uplift. We quantify, and that's why we say we're good for profit. Every single one of our case studies has a financial gain attached to the story. You walk into a boardroom or even a founder and go, that's what we're offering. That's where you start to have good conversations. Not we can do fluffy pictures and, you know, sing kumbaya and, you know, win awards. We don't believe in awards. We're more about design effectiveness. So did it result in a positive, profitable uplift?
Yeah, I love that. And I think particularly in the space that you're operating in, that is that tangible link to you're doing something good in the world. And also it's that triple bottom line, right? Here's the people benefit, here's the benefit for the planet, and here's some profit as well, which is all, we're sort of hitting that triple bottom line, right? And we can see it all on one page. I'm getting, right, financially it makes sense. I'm making money, the business is growing. I've got some marketing uplift, whatever that is, but we're also doing some good for the planet, and we're doing you can get lined up, and you know, a lot of the times that gets missed, that correlation between we've got a great story to tell, but what's the actual tangible financial outcome? Because that's still what a business is. You know, that C-suite, they're still going to base it on how much money are we making? Is this profitable for us? If we can maintain profit and do some good as well, that's where it becomes quite exciting and much more tangible and feasible to go, great, let's invest in and do more of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been able to do that because you've got that experience. You can tangibly say, right, we did this release over here. I communicated this message, and that the data now shows this was the uplift they got financially, in terms of views, in terms of metrics.
Yeah, generally, because a lot. So, for instance, the not-for-profit that gives the profits back to their people. For them, they were being delisted from supermarkets. Basically, they had a portfolio of 20 products, and they literally had almost all of their products delisted within 3 months of relaunching the brand. They were getting 16 products on shelves, like their ranging in supermarkets went through the roof. It was, you know, they had their biggest year in 7 years. You know, within 12 months of rebranding. I mean, we've got plenty of those success stories in relation to, you know, getting clients into exclusive contracts into major supermarkets throughout Southeast Asia by telling their story properly. Clients that were pitching to the supermarkets for 3 years with no success, if you just take a step back, strategically look at the story, tell that story in the right way, and within 3 months they've achieved their goal. I mean, that's exciting.
Yeah,
But anyway,
no, it's exciting stuff because it's so sustainable business. It's sort of been around for a while, but I think still today there's still this intangibility about it. Like, it's nice to do, say, fluff stories, and it's great to have, but that link to actually profitability has been pretty murky. So sort of in my experience over the last few years in that space, that link, that C-suite has always had that issue of, look, it's nice to do, but is it actually what is the actual uplift? So it's really,
But I think when it comes to profitability, I think especially given that your show's about working with agencies and making us more profitable, I think that's the big thing as an agency owner is our profitability. And I think, you know, as organizations and as industry leaders, we want to reward our staff. So if you talk about agency profitability, which I think is a really interesting topic rather than client profitability, because that's basically industry standard, is clients want to spend less. Staff obviously deserve to be paid more because everyone wants a pay rise every 12 months. So I think one of the greatest challenges that we face as agency leaders is being able to balance growth, profitability, and bums on seats. As much as I love having, you know, it doesn't necessarily equal growth. Like what we've found the last 3 years is, and COVID has really helped us see that, is it's about doing things more efficient, which isn't necessarily like we work. I don't think anyone's here at 5:35. You know, we're 9 till 5. You know, on days where we have to hustle, we might be here 9 till 6. But most of the time it's 9 till 5, and you know, we're healthy. We're actually in a strong growth phase, and we've retained some incredible talent because, you know, we're looking at how can we be more efficient, more effective, in, you know, keep the health of our team going strong. And that's turning the business profitable because the creative's there, so we're winning work. But I think that's an interesting topic about agency profitability.
Yeah, and that something you touch on, that we are creative people, right? We're in a creative industry, and that we're selling creativity. We're selling our capability to come. And the dichotomy is that the traditional agency is set up to absolutely decimate creativity because we're
100%.
hustling, we're grinding, we're working 70-hour weeks, and that's
ridiculous.
That's just not conducive to creativity, because creativity shows up in space, right? It's when you have great ideas when you're in the bathroom or in the shower or driving to work or taking a walk. It shows up in space and time when you're just resting. And the typical traditional agency structure is not set up to allow space. It's grind, hustle, selling time, selling billable hours. The more you're working, the more money. So it is part of me that the creative industries are set up literally against what makes creativity work. So if you found that, obviously you say you've got very strict, not strict, but having that 9 to 5 drives efficiency, it drives effectiveness, because I know I'm clocking off at 5, so I've got to get this stuff done.
Yeah, that's probably part of it. It's more like the way that we work, because everyone's an adult here essentially, is I've questioned that in past team members, but no, we've got an amazing team. It's more like these are the deadlines, how you achieve those deadlines, especially say last year, where, you know, it didn't matter whether they work between 9 and 10 o'clock at night, is as long as they were available for our team kumbaya in the morning, and we'd have check-ins throughout the day. If they want to go and rest, and I guess when we're back in the office, it's like, as long as the deadlines are being met, how you do that is up to you, and what you need to do that is up to you. And it's a give and a take. So like if the guys are sort of finished at 4 o'clock these days, it's like, don't linger, go home. But in 2 weeks' time, if we've got a deadline on, or they might be really inspired. I've seen them here at 6 o'clock at night on their own choice because they've been inspired and they want to stick around. Or one of the other team members is like, hey, I just get my best ideas at 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, whatever floats your boat. But that might mean that she has a longer lunch hours. So that's what I think is when you get big groups, you just need a little bit more stability. And I get that it's a challenge, but especially the younger generation, like the Gen Zs and, the millennial, like it's a very different headspace of what they expect from organizations. And I think we're going to see more of that come through in the next 5 years, as people going, work needs to work for me, not me work for work. I slept
definitely.
on my agency floor when I was first starting. They would grind you and you'd literally sleep under your desk.
But that autonomy is massive in terms of effectiveness. If I feel like I have control over my schedule when I'm individually going to be so much more productive and so much more effective. Like I said, here's the deadline, but if I can hit that deadline a few days before, and I work better later at night, or I can come in a bit earlier, and I've got say in how I show up and when I do my work and how I do my work, that is a massive flow trigger. That's a massive driver of peak performance and getting into state. So when you have that autonomy, that sense of control, it just makes you more productive. So exactly what you're saying is ideally that's how you want to structure your agency. People have that time. They can do things on their own terms to a degree, that as long as it's still meeting your milestones and hitting deadlines.
Yeah. And I think that's probably what we're strength testing now is working out how that works, is how do we make that work so that we all get what we need when we need it. And there will be good days and there will be days where we go, that didn't work.
But at least you're open to testing, right?
You got to try new things. And I think we've been probably the most profitable, not turnover, 100%. Turnover was down last year, but profitability was up. And that's what was really exciting, is going, how do we keep this going in the new normal?
And what is the one, if you had to summarize why that's been, is it effectiveness? Is it just getting more done in less time? Is it that sort of sense of autonomy and people are just crushing their work because they're more inspired and more engaged?
I think three things. I think one, we returned to core, is we dropped what we don't do, what we did. We let go of the stuff that we didn't need to do and wasn't our core. And then, so we were doing more of what we did better, which means we can probably do it faster, but still have a really good margin on the job. We have a fantastic, amazing senior account manager and general manager who is just like a gun with time management and keeping everybody, hitting estimates to actual. So we were delivering jobs on time, in budget, and making profit. And we also put our rates up, which was really scary for me because I was like, "Ooh, can we charge that?" So I took a step back, got a general manager involved 2 years ago, who at first was scary because his salary was higher than mine, and he's not really a billable. He's only probably 20% billable, but he was responsible for putting our rates up with my senior account manager. And, we started making money. So they're probably the three things that we sort of did. So be more efficient, but it was get back to core, look at your rates, and by having sort of people doing what they love, they're doing better work, which then attracts more clients.
Yeah. Awesome. Amazing. Thanks so much. It's been super interesting. I sort of went through a couple of different angles, but I think all that stuff comes together, that being on purpose in terms of who you're serving, but also how you serve comes back to your internal culture.
100%.
And you bang on that. And these younger generations coming through, they want that autonomy. They want that sense of self. They want that sense of control over their day and their schedule and how and when they work. So if you can factor that in, and I'll make allowance for that, like I said, you'll get that efficiency. Is it eliminating everything and getting very, very niche down to we do this and we do this great, so let's do more of that and say no to everything else. That also is massive. I said people love what they're doing. They love to do things that they're great at, right? So again, massive efficiency, massive effectiveness boost there. So all that, love what you're doing, love how you've set everything up, and the more on purpose we can be, the the better the win the hour as humans, right?
Yeah, that's
as
right.
agency owners and as agency workers, we get to feel better and be better with what we're doing. If people want to find out more about you, Cara, and get connected with you, where's the best place for people to come and find you?
Yeah, probably either at our website, or you can drop me a line at cara@tuckshop.agency. And even like for agency owners, I'm always up for a coffee or a chat. Like, I'm a sole founder, so I know what the ride is like. And sometimes it's always just cool to connect and just go, hey, how did this work for you? And I've been blessed with some really amazing senior people in Melbourne's industry that took time out to have coffees with me when I was really struggling. And they gave me guidance, and, you know, they caught up with me a couple of times, and I'll be forever grateful for those people. So, so my door's always open.
Great. Send the elevator back down. We support each other, and rather than sort of
definitely
infighting and battling each other, build the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm good mates with one of probably our key competitors. Like, I think she's an absolute gun. And we always smile and catch up. And she was actually one of the ones that had lunch with me, and we would be head to head on some pictures. I would not be surprised. And I was really, really touched that she was able to meet me as a human. So
love it. More of that. It's definitely love to see more of that. In the industry where it can be quite competitive and cutthroat, and out pitching each other. But at the end of the day, customers are generally gonna angle towards somebody that they resonate with, and you can have two people selling the same thing, and they're going to pick someone because they like them better. So there's work for everyone. So the more we can get along and be human. Love it.
Thanks, Chris. Pleasure.
No, thank you for dropping by. I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning a bunch out of today's episode, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.